With everything we went through in the previous episode, I was hoping this one would be quite the opposite, because it's been a pretty rough ride so far. We start today with an item level of 500 and our score sits at 985. Our plans for this episode was to purely do better than we did last reset, which shouldn't be very hard, surely. I planned on targeting some dungeons where I lack score for my fortified week, which was pretty much all of them, and then potentially sneak into a +8, which I really don't belong in just yet. I started off by completing the weeklies as usual, no need to really cover any of these anymore, so I guess we'll just skip over them. That said, we did have the Wrath of the Lich King time walking event where I decided to clear the Old War raid instead of spamming dungeons. I didn't get any upgrades from it though. I then cleared all of LFR for the bullion, some crests, and whatever gear I could get my hands on. We got absolutely nothing this week. From the caches this week, we looted a hero cloak with crit and haste, and champion shoulders with verse and mastery. From the vault, we had the options of a hero neck that most of my other characters would absolutely love. The joys of playing many characters. You're always going to get the items you need, just on the wrong one. We could also choose veteran tier shoulders, veteran legs, a hero tier helm with a socket, hero hands, and a hero belt. Even though the helm had a socket, I chose hero hands as it was the biggest upgrade, replacing my veteran hands. And according to Wowhead, they're also my best in slot. I could always get a socket later, and I'm sure my future vaults would present many of these options. I then went and spent my bullion on the Seal of Filial Duty. Though, perhaps I should have picked up a second trinket first. I don't know, no biggie, as the gearing is super fast and I won't have to wait very long for another item. I then converted my shoulders to retrieve my foreset, I upgraded a few bits of gear, then I made sure everything was gemmed and enchanted. This took our total item level up to 504. It was then that time of the week to jump in to some Mythic Plus. Now, I know I said I wanted to target dungeons that I had no score for, but I also wanted to do them at a fairly decent level, and the level I decided on was +6. This would not only give me a huge chunk of score, but I also wanted to target this level for aspect crests. There's an argument of course for doing +7s, that way you can obtain both aspect crests and hero gear, but after last week, I didn't want to push my luck. The key I had was a Brackenhide Hollow +4, so I had no choice but to sign up to some keys instead. Although I could have pushed my own key up to a 6, I decided against it. We kick things off with a Nelfaris +6, and this one started off pretty well, with the tank pulling the first two mobs into the next group, which is pretty standard to be honest. It takes me a while to get started, but my damage slowly starts picking up. I was also unsure where to lust, and because this week is fortified, it's usually a good idea to lust on trash instead of the bosses, as bosses don't tend to be the usual issue on fortified weeks, usually. I asked at the beginning, I got no response, and I guess the decision was down to me. However, in this case, because I didn't feel like it was necessary on the trash, I just saved it for the boss instead, which I did, and this boss didn't take very long to go down. Along with being a fortified week, as this was a 6, we had to deal with Afflicted, which I don't actually mind as an affix, as long as you have at least 2 members that can deal with it, though the more the better. I had to swap a couple of talents around, which is usually an issue for me, but it wasn't actually that bad. The pulls were a bit slow leading up to the second boss, and not really positioned appropriately to use the chains, but it was fine. Apart from that, there's not really too much to cover in this run. The pulls continued pretty slowly, we took some trash near the last boss that I'd usually recommend skipping, especially on a fortified week. But we do start today with a victory by taking this guy down and timing the run. This took our total score to 1080, and we looted a champion helm from the chest. Well, it's already better than last week. The next group we find ourselves in was an Alderman +6. Finding groups seems to be a little easier today. This one started off pretty horribly, with me becoming incredibly flustered, not even applying Flame Shock, which is super important for my damage output. For the second time in a row, I asked the group where they wanted Bloodlust, not knowing how much the tank would actually pull. No one replied, and I decided to use it for the first pack. Bromac was scary at times, with players' health dropping really low on multiple occasions, but this guy went down just fine. But then we get to the third boss, and here's where my timing couldn't have been any better if I tried. Because the group take a ton of damage, I'm completely out of defensives, and I end up dying. But if I just pause it here for a second and zoom in, look at what the boss is about to cast on a random player. Yep, that's right. I ank, immediately get the shard dot, and it takes me out again. Impeccable timing, Dilly. Good job. Thankfully, the group take this guy down, and we continue. Throughout the second half of the dungeon, we had players dying and not releasing. Packs were taking longer to die as it's fortified and they have a lot more health. This was wasting a lot of time. Time we simply couldn't afford to waste. so on 2 separate occasions I had to tell players to release and to get back and help us take down the trash. We were cutting it close leading up to the final boss, and here's the most embarrassed I've been in a very long time while recording these videos.
Nope. 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 Nope.
2 hours later.
I've done this on multiple characters time and time again, but because I'm using Ghost Wolf, it alters the speed of your character and it really threw me off. Oh dear lord, I feel really silly now. The last boss was a real pain in the butt to deal with as the tank refused to move at times. This meant I couldn't attack altogether. I had to let the tank know and they did end up moving. But this happened once again and I'm forced to just spam lightning bolt. Not really ideal and there's so much space on the other side of the room. This took our total score to 1,278. Though had I not asked players to release earlier in the dungeon to help take down the trash, we may not have timed this run. Next place on the list was a Nokhud Offensive +6. Yet again, I tried asking where the group wanted Bloodlust, not a single reply. Usually in this place, groups like to use it on the first pull, but most groups I've been in pull the patrol with the pack at the back. Seeing as we only pulled one group, I decided not to Bloodlust just yet. Maybe perhaps I should have. Everything went fine until we started the trash before the second boss. Interrupts weren't great and we all ended up dying. Apparently our focus was bad. After the second boss, I knew there was a possibility that we'd pull the birds, and these guys hurt. So when we did pull them, I popped Bloodlust. Most of us died, but the tank survived and I got back just in time to finish the birds off. You'd think if we didn't have Lust, we would have killed so many. Those birds really suck, man. Wins on the third boss was pretty chaotic, with party members running away from me. Ideally, you want to stack these if you can survive the damage. This is so that the winds go in the same direction and don't clutter up the area. That was pretty much my only issue for this fight. The last boss was just ugh. Once again, I got incredibly flustered, this time during the ad phase. I spent most of my time interrupting, thinking that I actually used the stun totem, once again not applying flame shock, and dealing pretty much 0 damage to the ads. We also let an afflicted go off just after the ads go down. I should really look into those health bars. I struggle to see them sometimes. We end up taking this boss down, but we still need some count. We rush over to the closest trash, we 2-chest this key, taking our total score to 1,480. I then decide that by doing one more key would be the perfect way to finish this week off, as this would unlock a second slot for the vault, and this key was a Halls of Infusion +6. This run started off really well and I was quite happy with my damage output so far. The ads were being interrupted and stunned, and Afflicted was being dealt with quickly. In fact, Afflicted only went off a couple of times today, as I tried getting the majority just to make sure it wasn't an issue. And for the 4th time in a row, I had no idea where the group wanted Bloodlust, as no one responded to my question. The pool at the beginning was large enough to use it, but I decided not to for some reason. Maybe that was a mistake. There's nothing really to cover in this place, to be honest. It was a pretty smooth run, and our only deaths came where players stood in something they really shouldn't have, or got picked on by a couple of stealthy boys. I've totally never died to these. Nope, never. Isn't that right, Seth? But things could have taken a turn for the worst at the last boss. Yep, you guessed it, the ads of course. Again, being interrupted with not enough CC and damage to take them down before taking us down. Well, only one of us this time, no idea how the paladin survived. We picked them back up, took down the boss, 2-chest in this run, taking our total score to 1,572. I also received a nice compliment, I think, anyway. I mean, they did more of the dispelling in that dungeon, but perhaps not all of them were afflicted. Oh well, I'll take it. This is where I really should have been done for the reset, but I only took a short break, and when I returned, I decided to sign up to a heroic raid in order to get some gear, a bunch of crests, and more slots for the vault. I got into an absolute pumper group that carried me through the entire raid, one-shotting everything, and it took just over an hour. I actually did really well, but let's not discuss the last boss. I switched off, started following someone else, and by the time I realized where I was, it was too late. Okay, I definitely should have called it for the day. This reset has been a very successful one compared to previous weeks, but I wanted to push my luck just that little bit more. So I signed up to some 8s. I wanted to unlock Myth Track for the vault. I got declined for so many keys, but I remembered the one thing I had that would push groups to accepting a non-meta spec like enhancement. Bloodlust. Yes, not heroism. We don't use that word around here. And that's probably what got me invited to this group, as we begin this Azure Vaults +8. I just hope it goes well, otherwise this poor tank's food's gonna be ruined. The plan here was to gather all the mobs and AoE them down. I get confused about how much the tank will pull and hold off on Bloodlust, which I'm glad I did, because it was a complete mess and it would have gone to waste. We run back and try again with the tank still alive, but this doesn't end well either. We let them reset, went a little slower, and eventually took these guys down. We reached the first boss with 14 deaths. This was where I popped Bloodlust, and this guy went down with no issues at all. It was pretty clear from the beginning that most of these guys were a pre-made, as there was some banter from time to time that made the run quite pleasant. It's nice to be in a run that doesn't start well and results in sarcasm, verbal abuse, and a bricked key. Not yet, anyway. But if we fail this one, we blame Alex, okay? You'll understand soon. Anyway, we make our way towards the second boss, skipping over me sleeping on the job. Twice. Yeah, I died. Nothing I could really do about it, let's be fair. And other than losing both druids to the guards, the rest of the trash and the boss goes down just fine. We get to the 2 breakers just before the third boss, and I'm super happy to see that the knockback is removed. It was funny in Season 1 when I was playing a Demon Hunter, I'd be fine, but watching others get launched off of the edge, I kinda missed that. The third boss goes down absolutely fine, being a fortified weak and all, but the last boss, even on fortified, well, this dragon can be nasty. And as far as time goes, we began this encounter with over 10 minutes remaining, and 1 minute until Bloodlust is off cooldown. The crystals are ideally where you want to use this, and I know I'm going to need to focus up, because if any go off, we're done. The first lot come out, and just as we're taking down the main one, the group let an afflicted go off. Then, for whatever reason, we finish off what I thought was the last crystal, but how on earth did I not see this massive nameplate on the right? I don't even know what happened here if I'm absolutely honest. But of course, letting one of these go off will very likely cause a wipe, which is what happened. We returned for round 2, and well, if Alex didn't disturb my team, maybe we would have done a lot better during the last attempt. What a butt face. Now, just before the second lot of crystals come out, I pan my camera and check for a second afflicted. I don't see one and assume we're good. However, looking back at the footage, I can see one hiding by the tank at the front of the boss. This, of course, goes off, it causes a wipe, and we return for attempt number 3. And as the saying goes, third time lucky. Or is it? As we begin this fight and we lose the healer. We pick them back up, take down the waves of crystals, avoiding all of the mess on the floor, and with 3.5 minutes remaining, would you believe it, we timed this +8, taking our total rating to 1,680 and unlocking a myth slot for the vault. And I had to throw it back to Season 1 and blame Alex for ruining a 2 chest. It just had to be done.